But the difference is, whilst Udolpho was incredibly boring and very long, this book was actually really enjoyable. And I'm gonna give it a yeah. Because it did more with its 150 pages than the other book did with its 700.
Yeah, but that's usually how it works.
Oh, almost always.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an opinion on this, Robert? I don't know if you've read too many, overly long books, but we have this theory that, the shorter books are almost always better.
No, I don't really have an opinion on that. I think it's an interesting concept.
Of course, I've got my exceptions. I love my Dickens and things, but in general, certainly seems that way. If you pick up a 700-page book, you know it's just going to be full of fluff and filler,
I mean,
under 400 is most likely to be much easier to get through, more enjoyable overall. 700, it just drags. It's more likely to drag.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a really good concept that maybe you hit 150, I can't really give an example right now, but is it a case where you wanted more? Or did it just not overstay its welcome?
I think when you read a short book, you feel like it could have been longer. Like when you watch a TV season and there's only one season and you think, flip, they could have made more, versus a 10-season show that you're just like, oh my god, why are they still making this, It's kind of like that.
Okay.
So, this one, there is the Castle of Otranto, subtitle, A Gothic Story, but that subtitle was added later when he realised he'd invented a genre. He kind of went back in the second or third edition or whatever and added the subtitle. The main character is called Manfred. Sorry, Alfred. Manfred, the Prince of Otranto. So, it worried me, and then it did something even worse than I thought it was going to do. So it mentions, he has a son and a daughter, the latter, a most beautiful 18-year-old virgin called Matilda. So immediately I'm like, right, he's going to try to marry off this poor, 18-year-old girl, or do some really sus things with this girl. So I was worried. And it turned out I should not have been worried about the girl. He decided to do that with his 16-year-old son instead. He's like, I'll just marry off this... Well, the son's 15, so he's like, as soon as he turns 16, I'll marry him off. So he gets another girl to arrive there. He's going to marry her to the son. Her dad goes off. They're not sure if he's still alive. He goes to, fight a war or whatever, I guess. This castle has a kind of prophecy. So they had an ancestor who was a giant. There's a giant suit of armor in the house. And there's a prophecy about, someone will come back who can lift it or whatever. What happens is the massive helmet falls on the 16-year-old boy and kills him. And our guy's Manfred is right, I'm really sad that my son is dead, so probably the only thing I can do is I'll divorce my wife and I'll marry his 16-year-old bride instead. It's probably the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's gross.
That's what I would do.
Of course, yeah. That's
horrific.
Of course.
That's really gross, but he's just... This is also funny. Someone wrote in the margin, and someone scored it out and wrote, people who write in books are very small-minded. And there were no further annotations. So yeah, his son dies, and he's just probably have to marry the 16-year-old then. That's the only way out of this jiffy that has been created for us.
Sorry, is there any relevance to the 16-year-old? Is she, from a great wealthy family, or is it...
She's from another family that also has a claim to the castle. Because there was
the castle that they
live in. Her family also had an ancestral claim to the castle.
Am I missing?
Well,
something?
I guess he thought if he unites the two families, then there's no squabble.
Yeah,
right.
Look at the castle.
But he has the castle.
He has the castle anyway. I think he might just be a paedophile, to be honest. I think that's what's happening.
Hold on. Maybe the other family is as too.
You beat me to the punch. We're going to get to that. So... The funny thing is, unlike in previous books we've reviewed, where, the one I did last month, for example, the Wilkie Collins, the wife was horrified by the idea of divorce. The wife here is yeah, I know he's kind of crappy, and I would very happily divorce him and go to a convent. No one's worried that he wants to marry a 16-year-old. That doesn't come into question. They're just
it's very convenient that the women just want to kind of get on with the story.
I would be happy to just, get gone from here. There's no problem, really. I'll go to a convent. There is a friar who's trying to dissuade them, but it's mostly on religious grounds. It's we're not sure if the church is not okay with divorce, even though all the people are. That's the only moral point that anyone has a problem with. So the weird thing happens, he imprisons the girl, and there's a horrifying scene where she's screaming while he chases her drunkenly through the castle and tries to, lock her up. But I'm is he going to rape this girl in this scene? That's what you're thinking. It's quite horrific. This peasant boy helps her escape. And he will come back in a minute. So, this guy, Frederick, is the girl's father, so she comes back, and he's kind of like, right, I'm not gonna let you, do anything with my daughter. Except, what if I also marry your 18-year-old daughter? Then we unite the two houses doubly, and we both marry each other's daughters. And they're just like, yeah, this is a great plan, like, this works for all involved, no problems there. And we have our two claims on the castle and whatever. Then the friar, so it turns out that the peasant boy is the long-lost son of the friar somehow. And this is where it gets a bit too coincidental. He just happened to be there and whatever. He's like, Manfred is going to kill him. He's like, you helped her escape. I am the law around here because I'm the prince, so we're going to have you publicly executed. But when they strip his shirt off, he has like a lightning bolt on his shoulder or something. And the friar is like, it's my long-lost son with a lightning bolt. And he's like, and actually, I didn't ever tell anyone this, but I married his mum, who was also your relative, so we also have a claim on the castle. And it's like, you've been living here this whole time and never told anyone. It gets a wee bit too farcical at this point.
Those are really fun.
That's the turning point for you.
Yeah, so basically what happens...
He's totally fine with marrying 16-year-olds.
Or marrying your niece.
Not on the record for any of this. But what basically happens is...
Just gotta paint him in that light.
Shockingly, though, this guy is, I guess, young and hot, so the two girls both fancy him. And they're like, yeah, how about instead of marrying each other's dads, we just, one of us just ask this guy out. Like, that seems like a much better plan. So they decide, and they're very...
their own age?
Yeah.
Never would have dreamed.
And they're like, which one of us is going to ask him out, and one is like, well, you're, more virtuous or whatever, you should do it. The way they talk about each other and about their mum is really... we've said before about these, like, super virtuous Victorian-type girls who just have no personality. That's all of the women in the book,
Mm.
And it's a bit much at times.
Did the 16-year-old son who was crushed by the helmet have any personality or do anything noteworthy?
Dies in like page 2, so no. But like, Isabella, can we adore her too much? She's like, my lovely children. The mum is called Hippolyta.
That's fantastic.
Your tenderness overpowers me, but I must not give way to it. It is not ours to make election for ourselves. Heaven, our fathers, and our husbands must decide for us. So even though the men are doing horrific things, they're just like, but we have to let the men make the decisions. So that's also really gross. So what actually happens is Manfred decides, I'm not going to let this peasant boy marry this other girl. I'm going to sneak out at night with a dagger and kill her. But he accidentally gets the girl wrong and kills his own daughter. So he stabs his own daughter with a knife. A ghost finally appears in the final chapter. And he's like, I'm the ghost of the great Alfonso who used to rule this castle, and y'all done messed up, But the interesting thing is, the reason this book is better than Udolpho, not only has a lot of things happened in a short time, I kept saying in Udolpho, the guy's very one-dimensional, and it's unclear why he wants to keep them imprisoned in the castle, and he's just a bad guy for no real reason. Mm. This guy's more believable, because he wants to marry the girl, he now realizes he's messed up, he's killed his daughter, and he's like, okay guys, I'm sorry, I messed up. I'm gonna renounce my claim to the castle, and put myself in a convent, and my wife in another convent. Yeah, poor wife, but...
Okay.
I know. But
all I can imagine is just Holy Grail here when you have John Cleese raiding the castle.
Yeah. But I think this made more sense because the guy actually had some development. He was like, you know what? I was a bad guy. I'm sorry. I took everything too far. I committed a murder. It's my fault. Take the castle. Take the principality or whatever.
Why did he try and kill the fiancé and not the peasant boy?
I didn't quite understand that myself. You think he would just kill the boy rather than the girl, yeah. But anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, we end up with 3 claims on the castle. The peasant boy was the one whose claim was weakest because he's poor. But in the end, he marries the one. It's kind of funny though, because he's like, well, 2 girls wanted me. One of them is dead, so I guess I'll marry the other one and we'll just have the castle then. That's the only way around it.
And nothing else happens with the giant suit of armour other than crushing the 16-year-old zombie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that was Otranto. That was it. They just at the end, it's like, cool. Who's still alive and not in a convent? I guess the peasant boy can marry the one girl. The end.
I guess that story just needed to be 150 pages. Like you couldn't extrapolate on that. There wasn't a whole lot more you
didn't need 700. Yeah,
yeah. That's it. But nor did Udolpho. That's the crucial point. So yeah, I really like this.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. It's hard to be like, I'd really recommend Horace Walpole because he didn't really write anything else. But do I maybe try his play sometime? I don't know.
Maybe.